And this is the event by IEEE Turkey Women in Engineering, a new initiative called ET Talk. So it's like a really lovely conversation with our IEEE leader. So here that I would like to introduce Katie, and actually I want you to introduce yourself from your point of view, Katie.
Thank you, Smear. So I don't have tea. I have Mountain Dew. And thank you for having me here today. I'm very happy to talk to you and the WIA women in Turkey. So I've been a long time WIE fan and active participant, and I'm very privileged to be the president-elect of IEEE.
We're really happy to have you as our leader. So you are the leader of this organization in 2021, and we are really looking forward. And you're the president-elect right now. And may I ask you to introduce your life, your career, and IEEE story as well?
Sure. So I started in IEEE not as a member. So I started in standards, and I worked in standards for 3 years, not as a member of IEEE. You don't have to be a member. You can contribute as a volunteer, not being a member of IEEE. So I did that. And then I wanted to ballot on the standard that I was contributing to. So I joined. And a lot of our members that come to IEEE do that. They come through conferences, they come through standards, publications, they participate, and then they join. And we have many that come through IEEE WIE experiences, and then they join WIE and IEEE. So that's how I joined IEEE, and I started volunteering in standards, and then the Computer Society, and I was a member of the Computer Society board, and then I was president of the Computer Society in 2009, and then became involved in IEEE broader activities. But I've been involved in region activities, Region 3, and now president-elect. So that's my story.
That's great to hear you from your voice, and many of us knows you very well as our leader and president elect and leader of this organization. And just I would like to hear IEEE from your point of view. How do you describe IEEE? Because you know that's the largest technical organization, like who's leveraging technology for humanity, and it's like a huge structure. I would like to hear IEEE from your point of view.
So what I tell people is that IEEE use like the blind man and the elephant analogy. So, or a piece of pie. So IEEE is not all things to all people, all things to all people, or all things to one person. Um, it's it's what you need to get out of it. It's very complex. So some people come to IEEE for the humanitarian activities, conferences. They want to publish a paper, like they want to participate in standards or technical activities. Um, but sometimes they might fall into the trap of criticizing some of those other things. Like they are very excited about publications, but then they look around and see the humanitarian activities and they don't understand why those exist. But we have a whole cadre of people who are very excited about SITE and those humanitarian activities, or the activities that are going on in Region 3 with MOVE and the tornado and disaster relief activities with that MOVE activity. So you have to understand that IEEE is very broad, and that technical uh, activities for the benefit of humanity is a very broad mission, and it covers a wide range of activities. And that statement means something very different to very different people. So that's really what I tell people, that IEEE is very broad, very dynamic, and you have to look across the landscape of IEEE to really understand what it is.
Excellent. And IEEE, as you said, there are so many organizational units, so many technical societies. So like you also have an experience from the standards and technical societies. So because like we're covering so many areas of technology, and with this 39 technical societies, how do you see the role of technical societies within IEEE?
So one thing that I tell people is that IEEE, we tend to talk in IEEE speak, the volunteers and people that are members. So we talk like OU or about the complex structures. But when I talk to people that are new to IEEE, or when I'm trying to talk about the benefits, somebody that's has no knowledge of IEEE, when you brought up the technical societies, I talk about what IEEE really means to me and what the difference IEEE has made in my career and the benefit it can really provide to the working professional. And that comes from the technical societies, or it can come in the regions, in the local chapters. Um, and that's where sort of the rubber meets the road. And that's where you, as a working professional, can find the content and the clarity that can provide you help in your daily job. And that's either in the form of like best practices, and that's what the societies can provide you, or in the help of guidance and mentoring, and that's in the support in the local chapters as far as people that you can reach out to.
And also, IEEE has a future direction. So, and every 5 years, there's a future direction strategic plan for IEEE. So, here recently in 2020, the new strategic plan, the future direction and strategic plan, has announced for by 2025. So, I would like to hear your vision about this strategic plan.
Okay, so that's actually a little different. The strategic plan was set by the past president. Well, it's led by Jim Jeffries. Okay, that was the last person that led it. So there's a new committee, permanent committee for strategic planning, that's led by the past president and a group of input from the board of directors, and they set this past new vision for strategic planning. That provides input into the Future Directions Committee. And the Future Directions Committee funds initiatives. But that larger strategic plan provides direction across IEEE. So to all of the boards, to all of the operating units, to all the committees, right? So that strategic plan provides direction to everybody, not just future directions. So what I think is very important, the piece in that few pieces from that strategic plan are STEM, how we're going to push forward pieces of education, and there's some broader vision for pushing out to industry, and reaching out to more of our constituencies.
Thank you for sharing your vision on IEEE future direction and strategic plan and explaining the structure, because sometimes it's not easy for all the volunteers and members to understand how the
No.
operation works. It's as you described
Mm.
very well at the very beginning. So it's really complex structure, and it's really hard work. So like you're actually leading this organization. So like actually you're the part of this strategic plan, and the rest of the organizational units and other operations under, so they're also following the strategic plan and trying to adopt their strategies accordingly. So IEEE Women in
Well,
Engineering is one of
so
them.
it was really interesting how the strategic plan, like the input, how it was
Yeah.
developed. So it wasn't just like a group of leaders that got together. We went out and solicited input from members, non-members, the different operating units, from volunteers, so from surveys. So really we wanted to get a sense of really where should the organization go in the next 5 years. So I want everybody to understand it wasn't just like a group of people sitting around a table in a think tank. It was really a prioritization, right? A gathering of ideas, input, and then a prioritization of that input.
That's really good and important to know for IEEE members and volunteers, because like you sometimes don't know how the operation works, but it's important that actually this large organization is actually hearing the voice of the volunteers and members and acting accordingly, even in this large and I can say huge organization. So you have a voice there and you represent, and it's really good to hear from a leader's perspective. Thanks for sharing that, and it's good to know
So I want
as a member.
I want everyone to know. So I want everyone to know that I feel like I'm a steward in this position. That in my number one priority is to represent the membership. I have a fiduciary responsibility as a member of the board to and when next year when I'm CEO and president to make sure that that I act in the best interest. So I'm getting a delay. It's hard to talk. That, but I act in the best interest of IEEE and the organization. But I am here in this role to represent the voice of the member. And anybody that knows me knows that's who I am.
Well, that's really good to know as a member and volunteer. By knowing you in person, I totally agree that, and also knowing other IEEE presidents of last couple of years. So, like, we really have a good representation. So, this is the organization
Mm-hmm.
run by the volunteers, and volunteers have their voice there, and you protect this voice. And this is really amazing. I think that's a good story also behind that. um, you represent and you hear the volunteers here, that I would like to hear from you about your vision of women in engineering in IEEE structure.
So there's some very interesting things going on right now in women in engineering. And you were at the last face-to-face committee meeting in March, and I was lucky enough to be there and see some amazing motions that were passed. So, women in engineering used to be, I'll give some history. Okay, so in 2011, WIE moved from a committee of the board of directors to become a committee of member and geographic activities. And when that happened, it gave WIE a better place to sort of grow. But part of the deal when that activity happened, because I was involved, was that WIE was supposed to have a seat on the MGA board and also be able to elect its own leadership. And that did not happen. So this past March, that issue was raised again, and WIE leadership voted to make that happen. WIE is an affinity group. There are two other affinity groups, young professionals and students. And affinity groups are different in IEEE structure than anything else. We have things like societies and councils that are in technical activities. And we have things like chapters and regions in MGA. But affinity groups are different structures, and they should be considered differently and governed differently. And so WIE is different among affinity groups in that they are charged, the members are charged an assessment. Every woman or man that joins WIE is charged $25. And WIE is unique in that it's the only organization I know of in IEEE where the members are charged an assessment and they are not allowed to vote in their leaders. So I think it's interesting in this day and age that we have a group of women and men who are not empowered to vote in their leaders. So this is going to the MGA board this June. It's on the agenda, and it's also going to the IEEE board. So hopefully that the members of those boards will do the right thing and approve the vote, approve the right for these women to vote. There's another item, which is for the WIE to have a treasurer and be empowered to manage their own budget. So both of these items are going, and I would encourage everyone who's listening today or in the future before June to send an email to your region director who has a vote on both of these boards, and that's Magdalena Salazar Palma. And you can look up her information on the IEEE website and encourage her to vote yes on these issues.
These are all very exciting.
Those are the things that are very encouraging. Yeah.
This is very encouraging.
But my vision for my broader vision, yeah. My broader vision for WIE is that it continues to grow, that the ILC, which is their conference, continues to grow, and that it truly becomes a global competitor with things like Grace Hopper and SWE.
And we have a huge community all around the world, and not for only affinity groups, but also other organizational units, but including women in engineering. So almost every country has a representation, many affinity groups all around. So this also brings different vision to IEEE, and now we're trying to, our leadership is trying to give a vote right, and also give more opportunity to have recognition and representation at that level, which is very encouraging. Thank you for all the initiatives.
Mm-hmm. Well, so you have to think of it this way. It's not just a woman's issue or a WIE issue. It's any group that's organized should have the ability to elect its own leadership. It's just a common desire.
Absolutely. And women in
Some
engineering
other things that are
also
very
also is not a women
you go ahead. Sorry.
organization. It's actually a representation of a large group and women and men working together. And yes, please.
Mhm. So there's some other very exciting things that are coming to the board right now, and that are the diversity and inclusion items that we have been working on. The initiatives were a result of an ad hoc that was appointed by Jose Mora last year, that was reappointed by Toshia Fukuda. They're both the presidents. Um, they grew out of an ad hoc that I appointed in technical activities when I was vice president. So these are reforming the ethics code and the completely restructuring and reforming the way that complaints are reported in IEEE. We will hopefully, if everything's passed, be able to have a quicker reporting process for ethics complaints, anonymous complaint reporting, confidential complaint reporting, a unified reporting structure, just completely revamping the ethics and reporting structure in IEEE. So very happy about all the work, and it's just been a tremendous effort by a number of people, and that's coming to the board as well in June.
They're all inspiring and motivational. You know, all the new initiatives, they're on board and they're just like, we look forward hearing all the news. And this is already great to hear them all. But, you know, like as a leader of this organization, I would like to ask you, what is your motivation? What inspired you the most as a volunteer of this organization? Because, you know, by taking that responsibility of leadership, actually, that's a huge responsibility, by the way. So, as a volunteer, there must be an inspirational reasons and motivational reasons behind that really, you know, just like keeps you working on all these great things.
So I don't know. I think I just find another issue to pursue, not fight. But I think I find like another challenge or another thing to fix, and I just that's what challenges me. It's not like one global, inspiring soundbite. It's just the next challenge. Like the most recent thing with the diversity and inclusion is that you just need to have. There were some things that happened to me and some other volunteers that really motivated us collectively to get together and want to make IEEE a better, more inclusive, safer place to be. And and then it's things like that that you just sort of, there's a thing, just daily little things that you just try to make it a better place to be.
I think that's a great motivational reason, because actually you're at the position
Yeah.
that you're changing many people's life, by leading the organization, by all those new
Well,
initiatives. So many people under this organization. So by following your steps, they will do more great things after you, and together with this
well,
all structure.
think about in Region 8 and 9 and 10. So, we sit in, IEEE used to be very US centric. And if we don't pay attention, it's not so much anymore, but if we don't pay attention to metrics, if we don't start collecting and looking at who's sitting around the table, then it could stay very US centric. right? And that's not, if we're going to be a global organization, then we need to pay attention to who's participating. It's one thing to say that we're a diverse organization, but we need to be inclusive. We need to make room for everybody. All the voices in IEEE should be heard. It's amazing when I look around and I see all of the work that's going on across the globe, the amazing volunteers and the amazing work they're doing across the continent of Africa, you know, Asia, India, all over the world. And then I don't see those voices at our meetings. You know, we need to figure out a way to make sure that they're included. And that's the work we're currently doing. That's the strategic plan. That's the work we're doing.
That's really great to hear that all the voices are cared, and there are like many initiatives are going on. Um, so so actually this is another motivation for the volunteers to keep working.
Yeah, I think there's some things we can do to make it better. And I think we are learning lessons from this COVID. You know, COVID is a terrible thing that happened to the world, but because we've been forced into a virtual environment, I think there's some benefits that we can reap from that. And there are some things that I want to push next year to make it better for IEEE in the virtual world. Because I think because we are so, our volunteers are so distributed across the world, that we can help enable participation from some of our, from volunteers across the world who have not been able to participate in some of our meetings before because of government barriers, because of travel barriers, because of cost barriers. You know, we can enable that participation because of virtually. I mean, I've gotten, you know, please from from students who can't pay for travel or volunteers who can't pay for travel, and we can enable their participation virtually. So we need to look and explore that and figure out how to do that in a cost-effective manner. Because we've been able to do that through, you know, right now because we've been forced to.
So actually, during these hard days of COVID, so IEEE plays a really important role for all around the world. As volunteers, we can see that and we understand the value of it. But can you describe the value of IEEE for humanity and for the whole society, for IEEE members and non-IEEE members? Because this is also, I think many people will be hearing us from this live and also watching this video later because it will stay and we will spread the word. So where do you see the IEEE's role for the humanity or in society for the future of technology during this COVID and post-COVID period?
So IEEE leads the world in its contributions to technical publications. It's the number one most highly cited patent for patent publications. It's you know, so it's being for technical leadership. It's no one can touch IEEE. The number of conferences a year, 1,900 technical conferences. You know, the number of publications that are produced each year are unrivaled. So that kind of thing goes on. You know, goes without saying how IEEE is the leader. So this year in COVID, during COVID, IEEE released, I don't know if people know this, but all the technical publications in the IEEE, IEEE library for free. uh, the Computer Society released its publications for free related to COVID for free, right? So that technical information will be freely available. Um, I'm trying to think of related to your question in a post-COVID world. Um, IEEE had to quickly adapt this year because of all the restrictions on conferences. And how do you, when you're used to having 3 conferences a day that are face to face, where you're getting technical publications in related to those conferences, adapt and shift so quickly. And IEEE did. They quickly shifted those to virtual conferences. The technical publications still came in. They upheld their responsibility and their mission, right? Which is getting the publications out so that people can cite those and the world can continue to progress forward, right, in advanced technology for the benefit of humanity. But I think going forward, we need to be prepared that the world is going to look differently. We are not going to be able to be dependent on face-to-face conferences, and that we are going to have to look at sort of hybrid models or virtual conferences. That it's going to be our responsibility to support conferences, and publications may look different in the future. And so that's what we're exploring right now. But we will support our mission.
No doubt, IEEE will adapt also. When having the knowledge and vision of adopting technology for the hard conditions. So, as a from volunteer perspective, probably we all agree that IEEE already adopted very quickly. But for the
Amen.
leadership level, you will probably lead this situation and adopt IEEE for these conditions and find more solutions and try to read the opportunities for this organization, and because IEEE is important
Right.
for also the society, not only for volunteers and members. The role is very important as you described.
Right. And there's huge opportunities because, so for example, there was a conference that was a face-to-face conference that had 900 registrations. And because of COVID, it had to go to a virtual conference. And they opened up the registration for free, and they had 9,000 registrations. Now, that is an interesting problem. How do you support 9,000 people in a virtual conference and have it be effective and successful, and how do you pay for that? And so we've got to figure out how to do a virtual conference model and charge for that, have it be affordable, allow people to attend face to face,
Mhm.
charge for that, and then charge for the virtual attendance and have it be affordable. Because if you think about it, if you have 9,000 people and you charge $10 a head, that's a huge amount of money. So,
And it's still
I'd pay
affordable.
$10. So, right. So, I don't know. We got to think about it.
Well, this is really great to hear those. And so for the volunteers of IEEE, do you have any advices?
Oh, man. For who? The advice is different. If you're a student, if you're a working professional,
Let's go one by
who do you
one.
want advice for? Okay.
Let's start from
Oh
students,
gosh.
maybe.
Um, okay. So for students, I would say to be open and flexible and don't come out of school thinking you know it all. That's my advice. Work hard. uh, keep a sense of humor. That's my advice for everybody. Keep a sense of humor.
For the
uh, and
for the
then
student
for
members,
working,
actually, like
go
I
ahead.
joined IEEE as student member when in the first year. That probably all the IEEE experiences shaped the rest of my life. As a
Oh yeah.
like for every stage of life, I'm still volunteering since the first day of our university. But this is probably your advices for them will be probably also the same way. They're probably shaping their life with all these experiences, so like all the very valuable advices from you will be also touching their life, which is great. So I'm very happy that some IEEE students will be watching this.
So my advice for everyone that's a student is to join IEEE and to stay in IEEE. For some reason, we're looking into this, and I'm trying. I've got some initiatives to try to keep our student members. We lose our student members upon graduation, and I've talked to students, and I have some ideas as to why we lose them. Some of it's related to their financials. So I'm going to have some prototypes to try uh, to to see if we can stop that loss. But my advice is to stay in IEEE and work because IEEE is there. It's been there for me throughout my career. It's helped me grow. IEEE has made me, and I told everybody this. It's made me the person I am.
I think this is the best thing to hear from a person you respect, that we have the same feeling.
Well, thanks.
Yeah,
Hmm.
it made me who I
Yeah.
am. Yeah, and so yeah,
Hmm.
I'm hearing from you. This is great. And so, and actually, so like we were saying, there are different advices for different people, for different segments of IEEE. Like young professionals is another group in IEEE. So, um, we may have a new members, but some IEEE students also stay and continue as young professional members.
So my advice to young professionals is to get involved again in IEEE and to take a leadership role, to lead a chapter or a young professional branch, or to uh, present. I spoke to a young professional recently, and I said to set a goal to present a paper once a year or publish a paper once a year. Present at a conference. And it was so cute because he emailed me and and sent a citation of his publication, and he said one down, right? So it's very. I remember doing that when I was in my 30s. That I was going to publish once a year or present. So you have to start setting goals in your 30s. That's the time, and that would be my advice: is to start setting goals. And it's like, less when you're getting married and when you're having children and everything's really busy, or finishing a master's. So you tend to get distracted, but set goals. So that's my advice for
Um,
that.
and my observation, like in last couple of years, IEEE leadership carries the voice of young professionals on the board level and also in many organizational units. I know your personal perspective, but I want audience to hear also how much you care of young professionals.
So I'm very much a fan of young professionals, and I believe very strongly in the young professional organization. Um, in fact, I think I have a telecon with them tomorrow, or maybe sometime this week. But so when I was vice president of technical activities, I looked around and realized that we did not have young professionals in technical activities engaged at all. So I had a budget that I guess the vice presidents typically use for travel. So I took that budget and I used it to get young professionals uh, to, from each society. The what
Mhm.
societies that couldn't afford to have a young professional travel and participate with the broader IEEE Young Professional Program, and we got representatives from technical activities engaged in that program, and it the society saw the benefit, and to this day that program is stuck, and we have a very active and engaged technical activities young professional program now. So so I'm very very much a supporter of young professionals, and will continue to be.
That's also very encouraging for them because like young professional is a different level. So like you're just probably graduate, you're trying to set all your life, and um, sometimes IEEE volunteering wouldn't be your priority, but we have great young professional volunteers who already balance their life, and it's actually important that you find a place for yourself in the structure, and your voice will be cared when you're there, and so that's encouraging for all the members. Also hearing from you the same way. Thank you for sharing that. And
Yeah, what
maybe
one thing that's interesting, and I think people need to think about this, especially young people or people that are coming up in IEEE. Maybe there's other people that are listening, but in IEEE we tend to be kind of stovepiped, and people dig in their heels, and we need to stop being that way. There's you don't gain anything when you have a rice bowl and you try to protect that rice bowl. So when people see the affinity groups like young professionals and WIE, or they see things like the site humanitarian activities, or these new technical activity groups, or different new ideas, people feel in IEEE feel threatened. And that's not unique to IEEE. It happens in any company or any organization. But instead of feeling threatened, we need to think about how we can encourage these new activities. That if something like this is taking off, there's obviously a need, and change is good, and figure out how we can encourage this type of growth. That you can be involved in YP or WIE and attend a conference and be involved in your region and join a society, and it's not, and participate across the broader landscape of IEEE. You don't have to isolate yourself in one of these activities. They're not mutually isolating activities, and they're not going to threaten each other. So we all need to learn how to get along and encourage each other. So
so
that's
for
my
the
soapbox.
so we just talk about students, young professionals, and I don't want to just specify for women in engineering, but for all the rest of
And let's don't forget
the community.
students. I'm also students get left out. I feel very strongly that I don't know why students can't vote. We let the graduate students vote. So I'm a,
Yeah, right. Actually, for the
don't want to cause an I don't want to cause an uprising, but I just I just don't think that's very fair.
That's also the paid membership, and
So
they're actually member and very active part of IEEE and the future of
I know,
IEEE.
and I feel like if students had the right to vote and were more engaged, maybe we wouldn't lose them. So anyway,
And and you have also, like here in the IEEE, there are so many membership levels. So we you can be a senior member and young professionals at the same time. So that's a lot of recognition opportunity. There are a lot of
right.
awards. So and that is really important to get
And
recognized by IEEE.
one thing people don't realize is that you can join IEEE and immediately become a senior member.
Right.
If you have the right level of experience, you sign up, you can apply for senior membership and get that right away. And you can be a YP and do that. And one thing people don't realize, and I was on the board when we made this happen, is that you don't have to have a degree to be an IEEE member. You know, we are trying to be as inclusive as possible. IEEE should be viewed as the mentoring organization for technology.
Mm-hmm.
IEEE is there for you throughout your career. And now we're extending that to STEM, to earlier.
That is important to highlight because probably even many IEEE members doesn't really know that, and there are rules written, but
Mhm.
it's not always the focus, and some probably non-IEEE members is not aware of these. It's just good to talk about them.
Right. When I joined IEEE, it was viewed as a very exclusive, good old boys network, very hard to get into. Um, and that's really not, if your mission is to advance technology for the benefit of humanity, then you need to look at at what you're trying to do, and you need to be as inclusive as possible, right? I mean, people like Bill Gates, he did he didn't have a degree. So we need to think about really what we're doing.
Thanks for sharing all your advices. And for the next stage, I would like to continue with the questions and answers. If there is a question, can we get those questions? Cannot see the questions yet. Probably there's like a yes. I think I'm back. Great. Can you hear me now?
Sure.
Wonderful. Okay. So so far we will try to address the questions from YouTube right now. Before moving them,
Oh, I'm
so just
scared.
before moving them, I just want to hear your last advices while checking all the questions from there.
um, so I would say just that everybody just work hard, work hard, find a mentor. If they have any questions for me, they can email me at skland at
Mhm.
IEEE.org. That's not really advice, but
Probably by knowing all your schedule, because you're leading a large organization. So like I think none of the volunteers don't really expect to get answer from you. By the every chance, by knowing you in person, so by the every chance when you have a place to give feedback and care and talk to volunteers, you're doing by every opportunity. But it's not easy to follow all the questions from all the volunteers, and you're already doing great by representing their voices. And if you're hearing a concern, you carry this to the board level. So I think this is pretty enough for all of us to know that you care all the volunteers. And thank you for everything you're doing for all of
thanks.
us.
Hmm. Thanks. Were there any questions at all?
Yes, I'm just checking at this moment.
Okay.
The people watching. Mhm. So we didn't get any questions yet. Probably they didn't know that they're able to ask questions. So for those people who are watching us right now, I want to ask them. So this is actually an interactive session. So Katie is here for you. So like your questions are welcome. Yeah, this is the part that we didn't get any questions yet.
I wonder if they know how to ask. I wouldn't know.
Okay. Oh yeah, we are getting those. Okay, so question. No, they didn't know probably, or just I'm saying that. Um, could you share your leadership experience in reaching where you are now, Katie?
The region where I am. Okay, I'm in Region 3, which is the Southeast United States, and I'm actually located in Huntsville, Alabama. I've lived all over the United States, in Southern California, Florida, Georgia, but now I'm in Alabama. And so in Region 3, I helped start Atlanta chapter for the Computer Society. And I was on the XCOM for Region 3. And I was the awards chair for a couple of years. Actually, after I was VP of Tab, I think, um, which was interesting. But I rewrote their awards manual, and I actually helped Region 2 establish an awards program. So that was my experience. I
Thank
never
you for.
led a section or anything like that. Yeah.
So that's very interesting. Actually, IEEE is really wide. So like we collect all those experiences like from different organizational units. So it could be only technical activities, could be only MGA level. So like this structure gives you a lot of opportunity to grow, which is very impressive.
Yeah. I think it's very important. I think it's very important for IEEE leaders, especially at my level, to understand the organization as much as possible. I've worked in conferences, been on conferences, organizational committees, multiple different ones. I've led standards working groups. Like I've been the vice president for standards for Computer Society. They have the most standards, or did at the time, in the IEEE. I was vice president of conferences for a Computer Society, and they had the most conferences at the time. So I think you need to understand. The only thing I haven't worked in is publications. but I have published through IEEE. But you really need to understand all aspects, if you can, of the organization. And the most complicated piece of IEEE are the finances. And I've been working on the finances for about 10 years to reform IEEE finances. And we're nearing that. We're rolling that out in the next 2 to 3 years.
As you said, well, just lead this organization or taking a leadership volunteer role at your level, you really need to experience all these fields and need to understand the organizational structure, which you do, and then you'll contribute more with all those experiences because you need the deep understanding how does it operates, which is great.
Right. So, one piece of advice I would have for people, I see people who try to rise up too quickly in an organization. They, they, I don't know, they advance too quickly. They get too excited about the leadership role, right? So, I was asked to run for tab vice president 3 years in a row before I did. And what I needed was I needed experience on different committees and tab before I took that role or ran. Like tab FinCom and tab management committee and society and review committee and different major committees so that I would understand and learn about the tab structures before I took that role. So it's you that's my advice is if you want to take a leadership role within IEEE, that if you want to be successful in that role because you owe it to the organization and the members, right? So do due diligence and learn about the role before you take it so you don't make mistakes.
That's really valuable to hear from you. And yes, I mean, you need to digest the organizational structure and all the experiences because it's the position that, or the leadership positions that you're giving back to society. So then it's your
Right, and you
time
want to
to
make a
do that.
difference in that role. And if you learn, about the organization, then when you take that role, you can make a difference. You can
Yes,
see what's wrong and you can change something. Don't just take the role and park your butt in the role. Make a difference.
that's amazing. And we get few more questions. Here,
Okay.
what is the best advice you got in your personal care?
I don't know if it was advice, but I got encouragement. And it was really early in my career. I worked at Pacific Missile Test Center in California, and I was one of two women, and I was the first computer person. And I worked with a mathematician.
Mhm.
She was a woman, and I was a woman. We were the only two women. And I had to quit to work at home. Well, I worked at home because I had my first child. And there was a woman who encouraged me to not quit, but to continue to work at home part time. And she made a huge difference. She encouraged me, said I had, writing skills and evaluation skills, and saw something in me. So years later, this was maybe 10 years ago, I I looked her up and and I I said, here's what I've done. Here are the books I've written. I think at the time I was tab VP or something. And I said, I owe so much of this credit to you. because at the time I could have quit and just maybe been, and there would have been nothing wrong with this, but been a housewife. But that's not who I am. I wouldn't have been happy. And she made such a difference in my life and who I am. So I think sometimes it's not maybe about advice, but about encouragement or telling someone what you might see in them. Or, I think sometimes encouragement might be more important than advice. So remember that when you're talking to somebody else.
Thanks for sharing that. We get one more question that um, how do you learn how to publish through IEEE?
Ugh, gosh. Yeah, it's okay. So there are different ways. So you can find a conference. Okay, here's the best way. Find out something, think of an idea, write your paper, and then shop a conference. Figure out the best place to get your idea or what you've done published. Right? So to come up with a great idea, I'll give you an example. Okay. So I wrote this thing recently about, what was the name of it? It was about, I don't know, leadership. It was a leadership team building thing, but it wasn't. It was about how technical people hate team building exercises, right? So when you have technical teams and you try to get them to do classic team building exercises, they hate it. And throughout my career as a manager, I've had my teams do different types of team building exercises. So I wrote about it, and I liked the article, and I wanted to figure out how to publish it in IEEE. So I looked around, and there's a Technical Engineering Management Society, TEMS, TEMS. So they have a journal, and I published it there. So that's sort of how I do it. Because I have ideas that are all over the place. 1 week it might be on software engineering, and then it might be computer science, then it might be management. So, but if it's related to your specific field, and you are in a society, you can go through your society or publish in a conference, but that's sort of how you can do it. The easiest way is to start like maybe a PowerPoint for a conference. So I hope that helps.
That's a great advice. That I'm sure it will help for many people and will change some people's life and their future.
Yeah.
So moving to the next question.
I do have a tip I have one more tip for publishing a book.
First,
so if you're publishing a book, I've done 4. The best way to do it that I found is you write your outline, your chapter outline. If you can get your chapter outline done, you've got your book written.
all those tips will be really helpful for many people. Yeah, thank you for sharing them. And so moving to next question. How to know which opportunities are one-in-life chances, and how to know you got them, you got to take them. Yeah, that's all also on the screen. How to know which opportunities are one-life chances.
So you don't. Here's the thing is that You have to know what's right and wrong. And you have to listen to your inner voice. And you have to be fearless. So, and I have to tell you, okay, how do I say this? And you have to not say no. All right. So there'll be many times where you're offered opportunities to maybe pursue a job or a opportunity or something like that, and it might be hard. Um, but so don't say no. That's an easy thing to tell you. But but there are times when you might be presented with a choice, like an ethical choice, um, or you might be standing in the minority. It might be a hard decision, but you know you're on the side of the right thing to do. Those are the once in a lifetime opportunities where you have to do the right thing. There have been many times, especially in IEEE, where I thought, this is the last time I'm going to be sitting in this board. This is the last volunteer opportunity I'm ever going to have. Because I was putting forward a motion that was very controversial, or yeah, something like that. But I did it. It was the right thing to do, and here I am today. So I can just tell you that playing politics does not work. I've seen people do it. They thought they were sharp. They're gone. You have to do the right thing for the right reason, even if it's hard. Those are the once in a lifetime opportunities. Those are the things that you take with you, that build your character, that you can look at yourself in the mirror, and that you know you've done the right thing.
Wow, that was a really great answer. Thank you so much for giving this opportunity and sharing that
But that's
advice.
not easy. But it's not.
No,
I mean it when I say that you sitting there and you know this is tough. So and you know that it's once in a lifetime thing,
but
and
all
you're
those
sitting there
tough
going, "Why me?"
moments, yeah, and all those
Yeah,
tough moments that
yeah,
you just like need to brave and be idealists and stand behind them,
yeah,
that makes you who you are today,
yeah, yeah.
which is totally recommended and such a valuable advice for everyone. Thank you, Kathy.
Mm.
So far this is our last question for now. We're
Okay.
almost pretty much covered everything, and all the discussion was really amazing. So I just would like to
Well,
summarize.
thank you.
Thank you very much for your time being here with us and inspiring all these volunteers who already watch and who's going to watch this um, event, webinar, or discussion. Lovely. I would like to describe as lovely discussion because it was really inspiring. It was really deep,
Great.
and
Thanks.
yeah,
Mm,
thank you so much for everything.
mm.
So this was the IEEE Turkey Women Engineering Affinity Group's ET Talk that Susan Ketterland was with us today and shared amazing advices and her stories with us. And thank you for watching. And thank you, Kathy, for sharing this time with us, the valuable time with us. This showed actually one
Thank
more
you so
time how much
much.
you care our volunteers. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you.
Wonderful. Great. Thank you. We're just like receiving very good feedbacks from the chat. Just want to say all the great things to you. Thank you so much for watching, everyone.
Oh, good.
Please
Thanks.
stay safe and keep volunteering because we are
Stay
a big
safe.
family all around the world.
Yes.
Thank you.